Morning, Trainiacs. Back at swimming after about 2 weeks off. I bet that you basically thought that I was Lucy Charles in there. That's how good it feels. It feels really good. But if you want the real thing, you want tips from Lucy Charles, we have actually partnered up with her and she sent in her 3 top tips for Ironman training. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you a link to how you can actually join the Lucy Charles Barkley race team. Heck of a video.
Okay, so Taryn has asked me to share my top 3 tips for racing the long distance or the Ironman distance with all of you. So I'm going to run through what they are in no particular order, but what I consider to be the most important factors for successfully completing an Ironman. Okay, so my first tip is based around being organised. So an Ironman is going to take up a lot of your time. So it's looking at a realistic amount of time that you can dedicate to training week on week leading into the event that you've chosen to do. I highly recommend working with a coach throughout this process. It just takes a bit of pressure off of yourself, and if you have got a busy schedule, it allows someone to work with you on that schedule to make everything work together. One thing that I would suggest doing with that coach, and that a good coach will do this anyway, is to look at your strengths and weaknesses on swim, bike, run, and whether that be on strength and conditioning as well, and really work on those weaknesses. It's really easy to train for your strengths because it makes you feel good, but actually to get the most out yourself, you need to focus on your weaknesses and turn those into strengths before the day of your event. Another thing around being organised is looking at having a good kind of time scale of how much training you can do, working around your work, your family and other commitments that you're going to have. Everyone has a normal life as well. Not everyone is a pro athlete, so you have to factor that in. You will have to sacrifice things, you're going to have to take that into account, but it will be worth it, and you're going to have to look at budgeting, meal prep, and all of the factors that go into training. It's not just swim, bike, run, it is fueling yourself, resting enough, and actually giving time to your family and your work life as well. Okay, my next tip is based around nutrition, and this isn't just race day nutrition, it is nutrition in your normal life as well. Now, you don't need to go out there and do some crazy wacky diet to complete an Ironman. I just recommend having a healthy, balanced diet. If you're someone who's vegan or plant-based, that's fine. If that works for you, then go with it. But I wouldn't recommend trying to do some crazy new diet training for your Ironman. Just stick to what you know works for you. If you do want to try something new, then I recommend seeking out a nutritionist and actually working with them to build a plan that works for you around your training. I'm actually very lucky that I work with a company that supplies my meals, and I think that is available, so it could be something that you look at. Obviously there's a cost associated with it, but it does take that pressure off of you, and you know that you're going to match your calorie output with your training. They're just going to supply the meals that match that, so that just takes a bit of pressure off, but obviously that is a bit of a luxury item. Now getting into your race day nutrition, obviously practice, practice, practice. You need to practice what you're going to do on race day in training, and not just once, multiple times in different conditions and at race intensity. So you may find that you practice a race nutrition and it works well on one day, but then it completely doesn't work on another. So it's about trial and error, doing it multiple times, and then finally finding that race day nutrition strategy that works for you. Now, kind of getting into when you've got that and how that works, I find that in a race, time moves so fast. So I set a timer on my bike computer that pretty much beeps every 15 minutes, and it reminds me to eat or drink, because you can kind of drift off and just be riding and then an hour might have passed and you've not eaten. So I find that that's like a top tip to make sure and remind myself, okay, now I'm going to have a bit of a drink, and I tend to alternate every 15 minutes between having a bit of solid fuel and a bit of liquid fuel, but again, that's down to personal preference. Another thing you will need to look at is the conditions that you're going to go and race in. So if it's going to be a really, really hot climate, you need to factor in nutrition, salts, electrolytes, so much more than if you were going to race in a cold climate. You can also go into really high detail on your sweat rate, amount of salt loss for you as an individual, which will be different to someone else. So all of these things need to be factored in around nutrition, but if you don't fuel your body correctly on the day, it's all going to fall apart. So it's almost as important as the training is making sure you fuel yourself correctly. Okay, so my final tip is based around pacing, and this again is really individual to you as an athlete, and it can be so easy to get on that start line and get sucked into going too hard with other athletes who are pushing the pace early on in an Ironman. But this race is a long day, so if it's your first ever long distance, just get to the finish line. That's got to be your final aim, really. That was mine when I did my first long distance race. So think about what you've done in training, set those targets before you go into the race. So have target splits for swim, bike, run that are realistic to you, and try and stick to that pacing throughout the race, and you will have a much more pleasant experience and probably a more successful day just by sticking to your own race plan. Now that becomes more different as you become a pro athlete because you're racing for finished positions, but it's still about pacing yourself on the day, and if I go too hard on the bike then my run's going to suffer. So it's always about looking at your personal pacing plan. Another thing I always focus on is my power and heart rate data. So if you've trained to power and heart rate, it's sticking to those zones that you know are comfortable and within a range for you, not letting the power spike too much on climbs, not letting the heart rate spike too much on climbs. And when you get on that run, you want to keep that heart rate nice and steady, keep the pace fairly steady, again on the hills, not letting the heart rate climb. You don't want to burn too many matches throughout the race. You want to just keep it at that steady pace you know works for you and is going to get you to that finish line ultimately. Pace yourself for puppies. If it means you're going to get a puppy at the end of the day, then you're going to have to dig deep at the end so you can get yourself one of these.
Yeah, me and Reese had a little agreement, so if I finished first in the race we could get 2 dogs. If I came second we could get 1 dog. If I came third, no dog.
Yay! Thanks for everyone for listening to my top tips. Thanks for Taryn for asking me to share my advice with the long distance. Hopefully that was useful for you, and if you have any further questions then don't worry about reaching out to Taryn or myself to ask those questions. Or Lola. Let me just get something out of my eye. Pace for puppies! Pace for puppies!
Well, that was good, Trainiacs. That was good. That was a 30-minute swim. I did 3 times 10 minutes steady at, I don't know, I think this would have been going at like a 145 per 100 meter. And I did the first 10 minutes with fins and a snorkel, then the second 10 minutes with pull buoy and snorkel, and then the last 10 minutes just with snorkel. I like snorkel in this thing because it has a tendency to like be a real strength focused swim, because like the current comes back and your feet sink down a little bit, so it really makes you work on like pressing that chest into the water. It's good. Felt like Lucy Charles, Barkley. So, all right, Trainiacs, thank you very much to Lucy Charles for giving us those tips. If you want to enter to try to be on Lucy Charles Barkley race team coaching, like get that package to be coached by Lucy and her husband Reese, they're phenomenal. Go to a link in the description below. It's on teamcharlesbarkleycoaching.com, but there's a link that you've got to go to get to it and apply. So thanks, Lucy. Go apply, and oh, by the way, they have an awesome YouTube channel. They're putting out some of the best content. Here are 2 of my favorite videos. So if you already have a coach and you really just like Lucy Charles and want more of her content, check out these 2 videos from them, which are my faves. Later, Trainiacs.